Hello all, welcome everyone to Dhruv's EmVault webinar. I'm Umesh hosting today's session. Thank you for joining us. We'll wait a couple of minutes for everyone to log in before we begin. While we wait for others to join, here's a quick overview of today's session. We'll explore the key aspects of EmVault, a solution developed by Dhruv's Center of Excellence team. We'll review its core features, walk through a short demo, and conclude with a Q&A session to address your questions. For those who are new to Dhruv's EmVault, it's a specialized software solution designed for Opcenter MES data management. It helps organizations efficiently archive, purge, and restore Opcenter data, ensuring improved system performance and compliance. A few quick reminders before we begin. This session is being recorded. If you have any questions during the presentation, please drop them in the Q&A tab so that we'll address as many as possible during the Q&A session. All right, it looks like most of us are here. Thank you all again for joining. I'm excited about the insights we'll be sharing today on Dhruv's EmVault. Without further delay, let me hand it over to our speaker, Meghraj Adke, the Technical Product Manager of COE team, who will guide us through today's session. Meghraj, over to you.
Yeah, thank you, Umesh. Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining today's session. As we all know, over the years, our MES databases have grown significantly. They contain a huge amount of data that has accumulated from continuous manufacturing operations. In reality, for most organizations, only a small portion of this data is actively required, while a large percentage of this data is considered as historical records. However, despite knowing this, many organizations still hesitate to purge or archive historical data. And the reasons are completely valid. The fear of losing important data, the risk of breaking table relationships, or the possibility of application failures that could impact live operations. These are very real concerns, and they are completely understandable. At Dhruv, we understand these challenges because we have seen them across many MES environments. The real challenge is not just the volume of data. It's managing historical data safely without affecting application performance or data integrity. And that is exactly where EmVault, along with our expertise, comes into the picture. EmVault helps organizations securely manage historical data through safe and controlled archive and purge operations. With that, let me briefly introduce myself. My name is Meghraj Adke. I have over 8 years of experience in software development and in manufacturing domain. I have worked on multiple global MES projects where I have leveraged my domain expertise along with modern technologies to design solutions that improve operational efficiency for manufacturing organizations. Currently, I'm a technical product manager in the Center of Excellence team at Dhruv, where we build innovative solutions for manufacturing enterprises. Today, I will be sharing insights about EmVault and how it can help organizations manage their MES data more effectively. So let's begin. Let me quickly share my screen. I hope my screen is visible.
Yes, Meghraj. Yeah.
Here's what we're going to cover today. We will first go through the EmVault overview and its key features. Next, we will look at the architecture and overall process flow of EmVault. Then we will explore archive and purge in detail, address common concerns, and go through product demonstration. After that, we will go through a real-world case study of one of our customers who are using EmVault. Finally, we will summarize the key takeaways, do a quick recap, and open the floor for Q&A session. Before we jump into the solution, let's take a moment to understand the problem that most manufacturing industries are facing today. The biggest challenge is database growth. In a manufacturing environment, transactions never stop. Every shop floor activity continuously generates data, and everything gets stored and never deleted due to compliance or other reasons. So naturally, production database keeps on growing every year and there is no stop to it. Now, what happens when a database grows like this for 5 to 10 years? The performance starts degrading. The queries that used to take milliseconds before now take seconds or even minutes sometimes. This happens because the database has to process larger volume of data, which will increase memory usage, disk IO, and CPU load. This will directly impact the system stability and users will start experiencing system slowness. Then there is also operational impact. Larger databases make maintenance activities longer and more resource intensive, turning routine tasks into complex and time consuming activities. And all of this also starts impacting the business operations. Users experiencing system slowness will lead to reduced efficiency and creating delays and operational bottlenecks across departments. Ultimately, all of this leads to higher total cost of ownership. Now you need more storage, compute, memory, infrastructure, DBA effort just to maintain an acceptable performance. So when we talk about database growth, it's not only about storage, it impacts performance, efficiency, maintenance, and overall business cost. And that's the real problem we are trying to solve here. Now let's look at the EmVault solution. EmVault is a specialized data management solution which is designed to specifically streamline and control the database growth. It will intelligently archive the historical data into a separate archive database and then safely purge the redundant data from the production database. By reducing unnecessary data in production, EmVault improves query performance, simplifies maintenance, and enhances overall efficiency with a very minimal impact on live operations. The idea is simple. With EmVault, a large and slow performing database will become an optimized system that will run faster and give you more stable performance. And all of this is done in a secure, controlled, and compliant manner. Now let's look at some of the key features of EmVault. EmVault supports both Microsoft SQL Server and Oracle databases, making it flexible for different enterprise environments. It can connect to multiple databases, making it a centralized management system for different database environments. EmVault gives you smart, rule-based archiving and purging, allowing organizations to configure exactly what they want to purge or archive based on business requirements. Beyond archive and purge operations, EmVault also supports restore and rollback operations, which will ensure that users will have a complete control and recoverability. The entire process is automated and schedulable, which will reduce manual effort. And finally, EmVault provides automatic email notifications with job status and execution details. So all of these features will make EmVault a complete and controlled data lifecycle management solution. EmVault provides out-of-the-box archive and purge solution for multiple business categories. These pre-configured solutions are ready to use and can also be customized to fit your business requirements. The first category is archive and purge by container, which will process container and its history related records. Next is archive and purge by manufacturing order, which will process completed manufacturing orders, associated containers, and their history records. And finally, archive and purge by equipment, which will process equipment, job, and part-related history records. This category-based approach ensures related data is processed together while maintaining referential integrity. Now let's look at the architecture overview of EmVault. EmVault follows a modular and layered architecture with 4 main layers: Web UI, Web API, Windows Service, and Database. Each layer has a clear responsibility and communicates with other layers in a structured manner, which makes the system scalable, reliable, and easy to manage. The Web UI layer can be accessed in the browser and is used for all user interactions, such as logging, creating configurations, and managing and monitoring jobs. The Web API layer acts as the coordination layer. It receives requests from the UI, processes the logic, and communicates with the EmVault database to store and retrieve configuration and job data. The EmVault database layer stores all configurations and job related information. It also holds execution data such as checkpoints and tracking data during job processing. Finally, the core component is EmVault Windows Service, which acts as the execution engine. It includes a scheduler that triggers the jobs and a processor that executes them using archive, purge, restore, or rollback engines, depending on the job type. All operations are controlled and fully logged. Together, these layers form the complete EmVault application, which connects to source databases like production, UAT, or ODS, and moves data into the dedicated archive databases. Now let's understand how archive and purge process works behind the scene. At a high level, archive operation moves data from source database to archive database, first copying it in archive database, then deleting it from the source database. Purge, on the other hand, directly deletes data from the source database, storing only primary keys in the archive database for tracking and potential future restore. When a job starts, EmVault loads metadata, which includes rule configurations, table relationships, and database connections. Next, it validates schema between source and archive databases, checking columns, data types, and structures to prevent mid-process failures. After validation, the core logic begins. EmVault processes data in controlled batches instead of one large transaction. This prevents long locks, blocking issues, excessive transaction log growth, and performance impact on live systems. Each batch runs in two phases. Phase 1, insert eligible records into archive database. In phase 1 archive mode, full records are copied. In phase 1 purge mode, only primary keys are stored. Phase 2, delete the corresponding records from the source database. In phase 2 archive mode, batch integrity validations are performed before deletion using checksum and row count verification. In phase 2 purge mode, records are deleted directly. This batch-driven, validated approach ensures minimal impact on production while maintaining data integrity and control. In summary, EmVault follows a structured, secure, and performance-optimized process for archive and purge operations. Now let's understand restore operation working. The restore operation brings archived or purged data back into the source database. EmVault supports two types of restore: standard restore, which restores archived data from the archive database, and ODS restore, which restores purged data using ODS database. The execution flow is similar to archive and purge: metadata loading, schema validation, and batch processing. However, restore has only a single phase: data insertion. Records are selected in batches from the archive or ODS database and inserted back into the source database. There is no deletion phase. This controlled batch-driven approach ensures data can be safely and reliably restored whenever required. Now let's understand how EmVault selects records during processing. In phase 1, which is select and insert, EmVault follows a top-to-bottom approach, meaning data is processed from parent tables to child tables. This ensures parent table records exist before inserting related child table records, maintaining referential integrity and data consistency. In phase 2, which is delete, the order is reversed. EmVault follows a bottom to top approach, deleting child records first and then parent records. This prevents orphaned data and ensures safe cleanup. This structured approach guarantees data consistency and integrity across archive, purge, and restore operations. Now let's look at the common fears regarding archive and purge. Organizations typically have three major concerns around archive and purge. First is data safety: fear of data loss, corruption, broken relationships, or wrong data selection. Second is production impact: concerns about system slowdown, blocking, or resource overload while processing large data volumes. Third is business and compliance risk, ensuring audit requirements are met, retention is controlled, and data can be restored or rolled back if needed. Because production systems are critical, organizations need strong control, validation, and restore capabilities before implementing archive and purge. Now let's see how EmVault addresses these concerns. First, let's see about data safety. EmVault follows copy, validate, delete approach. Data is first copied to the archive database, validated for integrity, and only then deleted from the source database. This ensures no data loss. It also uses rule-based, retention-driven selection, meaning only the data you defined gets processed. Finally, it processes data in a relationship-aware order, maintaining referential integrity and preventing orphaned records. Next, let's see about production performance. To protect live systems, EmVault process data in small controlled batches, avoiding large transactions that can overload the database. These short-lived transactions commit quickly, hold locks briefly, and minimize blocking or log growth. It also supports configurable throttling and off-peak scheduling, giving you full control over execution speed and timing. Finally, let's see about business and compliance. EmVault preserves active data by selecting only historical records based on defined rules. Archive data remains securely stored for audit and reference purpose. It also supports retention policy configuration along with restore and rollback capabilities, ensuring data can be recovered if needed. With these safeguards, organizations can confidently implement archive and purge without risking data safety, performance, or compliance. Now let's look at EmVault end-to-end workflow. First is database configuration, wherein you will define the source and archive databases so that EmVault knows where to connect to. Next is table and relationship setup, wherein you will select the tables and define parent-child relationship to maintain referential integrity. Then comes retention policy-driven rules, wherein you define what data to archive or purge based on business and compliance requirements. Finally, you execute the job. EmVault runs it in safe and controlled manner. At the end, the result is optimized production database, improved performance, maintained compliance, and secure archive storage. Now let's look at the EmVault demo. This is the Nexus application. Let me log in. Nexus is a web application that centrally manages all Dhruv products hosted within it. It provides one-time sign-on using LDAP and one-time configuration for all Dhruv applications. In Nexus, you will configure roles, environments, domains, servers, and users. Later in the session, we will see how to do this. For now, let's focus on EmVault. EmVault is one of the Dhruv applications which is hosted inside Nexus. Let me launch it. Let me connect. So let's look at the database configuration. Here you will be able to configure source, archive, and ODS database. Now let's configure an archive database. For the database configuration name, for the description, choose the category Opcenter execution. Click on SQL Server since I'm using SQL Server. Select the server. These servers are configured in Nexus. Provide the database name. Provide the username. Then password. Since I'm creating archive database configuration, I will select this archive database. If you're doing for ODS, you can select ODS database. Then click on submit. So when we click on submit, EmVault will try to connect to archive database. And if it's successfully able to connect, then it will save it. Now let's create configuration for OLTP database or source database. Server select server, write database name, username, and password. Now I will map archive database to the source database. Similarly, I will map an ODS database, which I had created before. Now let's map a user. So this user will be able to access all these three database configurations. Now click on submit. So it got saved successfully. Now in the view page, we'll be able to view all the database configurations. So here are the ones that we created. Now EmVault will be able to know which database to connect to while processing the data. Now let's go to next step. Now let's look at setup tables management. This is where you configure tables for archive and purge operations. Now let's select database configuration. Now let's select a table type. EmVault automatically fetches all the tables from your source database. You just need to select the ones that you want to work with, identify the primary key for each, and save the configuration. Now let's see how to do that. Let's search for container. Let me search for container ID. So in container table, container ID is the primary key. You just need to select this and click on save. So this is how you save the configuration for a table. Now, if you're doing this for the first time, EmVault provides you a predefined template for configuring tables and relationships. Let me do it that way. So let me select the template and click on import master data. So now it is configuring tables and relationships for the categories that we saw in the PPT, which are archive and purge by container, archive and purge by manufacturing order, and archive and purge by equipment. So now it is done. Now EmVault knows what all tables to work with during the archive and purge operation. Now let's move to next step. Now let's look at setup relation management. This is where you define relationship between your tables. Let's select database configuration. Here, as you can see, there are some relations already created for us since we have done the master data setup in previous step. Here you can see container relation, MF children relation, and equipment relation already created for us. But still, let's see how to create a new relation. Select the database configuration, give the relationship name, and the description. Then first we need to add the root table. Let me add container as root table. Then we have to add the primary key, container ID, and click on add, click on save. Okay, so once this is done, you can see the same relation in the view page. Let's see here. So here that relation is present. Then you can add further tables here. Let's click on add table relation. Here I will add history mainline table and relate it with container table. Let's select history mainline. And history ID, container, and container ID. So history mainline and container are getting linked through history ID and container ID. Then click on add, then click on save. Okay, so like this, you can create relation between all the tables. So once this is done, this will make sure that EmVault will maintain referential integrity while processing the data. Now let's go to next step. Now Now let's look at the rule management. This page lets you fully control how EmVault handles and processes your data. Here you can set up powerful custom rules to decide what data should be processed and when it should be processed. Let's create one rule. Let's give rule name. Let's give the rule description. Select the status. Select the user group. Now here you have to decide whether you want to go with archive or purge. I want to go with archive. Select the database configuration. Select the relation. Select the query text. Now record fetch limit will give you maximum number of records that will be returned by this query. I want to leave it as it is now. Now let me get the query. Okay. So in the query window, you can write custom SQL queries for filtering the records based on the filtering criteria that you want to have, like last activity days, status, retention days, or anything. This will let you target only those records that you want to process for archiving and purging. So here I have written the query to get the container IDs from the container table, and I'm filtering it based on the last activity date. I'm selecting the container IDs between January 2024 and August 2025. So let me execute it. So it will give me container IDs. Now let's click on container criteria configuration. This screen will let you configure eligibility criteria for containers selection. This configuration will bring additional containers that are referenced to main containers that you got from the query. In max container hierarchy level, you can set up how many levels of related containers you want to consider. The containers can be related as parent-child containers or transactionally related. Next, you can select status for containers. I want to process only closed and deleted containers. Similarly, you have to select status for material containers. Here also I want to process closed and deleted containers. Next, I want to consider containers from other MFG orders. For container relation, we usually select this. For MFG order relation, you can decide based on the requirements. After that, you can select status of events associated with the containers if you want to. Finally, you can select retention for additional containers that you will get. I'm not setting these two. Let me click on save. Now let's click on scheduling. Finally, EmVault will let you schedule this rule to run automatically. Here you have two options, one-time scheduling and recurring schedule. If you select recurring, then here you have daily recurring, weekly recurring, monthly recurring. Here you can select start date, start time, end date, end time, and set up the recurring schedule. If you select with one-time schedule, here you can select date and time, and on that point, one-time schedule will run. So I'm not going to set up schedule for this rule. Let me close it. Now let's click on create. Now the rule has been created. So in the view rule management page, you can view the same rule that you just created. Let's go there and check. So here it is. Now let's go to next step. Now let's look at the operation page. This is where you create and monitor, archive, purge, and restore jobs. Let's create one job. Let's click on create operation. Let's select archive. Let's select the rule that we had created. Click on create. Now confirm. So this has created the archive job. Now let's create one purge job. I had already created one rule. This is the scheduled rule. So let me click on create and confirm. So once the operation is created, it will be listed in the view operation page. So let's go there. As you can see, I just created two new operations and one of them is already running while the other one is scheduled. So job 29 is scheduled to run and job 28, which is OLTP job, is already running. So here you can click on live updates to see how it is running. So if you're getting these live updates, it means job is running properly. Here you can also see that I have many other jobs as well, like job 27, which was an archive job. It is completed. And for this rule, I had set up restore. So that's why I'm getting restore execution button for this completed job. So when I execute this one, this will bring all the data from the archive database back to the source database. Job 26 was a purge job, which is completed. And for this rule, I had set up ODS restore. So that's why I'm getting this ODS restore button here. So when I execute this one, it will get the data from the ODS database and put it back into the source database. Job 25 is the purge job and it is completed. And for this rule, I had set up archive DB purge. For job 25, I don't want to restore. I just want to purge the data that is primary key data that is there in the archive database once archive purge is done. So that's why I'm getting this archive DB purge. Now, job 24 was the restore job. It has been completed. And job 23 is the archive job. It has been paused. Now you have resume option here. You can click on resume and execute. So this will resume the job. Now, if you have a situation wherein you are having a high load on the source database and you don't want to run any archive or purge job at the same time, then you have this pause option for the running job. If you execute this, the job will stop to run and it will be paused. Okay, it got completed already. Let me pause this one to show you. So I just paused it again. Okay, so we have few more jobs here. Job 20 was the archive job. It has been errored out. So when there is an error for a job, we have again two options, retry or rollback. So if we retry, the job will get retried and it will start executing from the point where it had stopped. Let me just retry. So the job has been retried. You can refresh here and you can see this is executing now. Here I have one more job which has been errored out. I will roll back this. So it will be set to new and starts executing. Okay. So now let's move back and these are the restore operations. Let me just click on this one and start executing. So the Windows service will run 5 jobs at a time. So this will give you full visibility and control over every data operation happening in EmVault, ensuring transparency and confidence in your system. And also you will get detailed logs and email alerts for every job execution. Let me quickly show you the logs. So these are the debug logs and these are the job logs. So in the job log, you will have every information about the job execution. So let's quickly check on the Nexus application. Let me quickly log into Nexus application. This is the Nexus application wherein we will configure roles, environments, domains, servers, and users. In user role management, we will configure role with apps. In environment configuration, we will create environments for different environments. In domain management, we will configure domains with LDAP servers for AD authentication. In server configuration, we will configure servers with domains and apps. In SMTP configuration, we will configure SMTP servers. In user registration, we will configure users with roles and domains and servers and apps. In license viewer, we will see the license of the application. In user role, we can configure user roles. Log out. Now let's look at one of the success stories from our customers who are using EmVault. EmVault successfully archived over 250 million records in 11 days across 3 runs without impacting live operations. It maintained stability, referential integrity, and production safety throughout. Depending on infrastructure and configuration, it can process 10 to 25 million records per day. This demonstrates that EmVault is built for enterprise-scale, high-performance data management. Now let's look at the document blob migration with Docflow Migrator. In Opcenter, the database stores not just transactions, but also documents like PDFs, images as blobs. Over time, these consume significant storage and impact performance. Since these documents will be actively referenced, they cannot be purged without breaking the application. Docflow Migrator solves this by safely moving the blob data to external storage such as AWS S3, Azure Blob, FTP, or network drives, while keeping document fully accessible. This reduces database size, improves performance, and complements EmVault, giving you a complete data management solution. Let's look at the key takeaways from today's session. EmVault helps maintain a lean, high-performing production database through safe, controlled archiving and purging. It simplifies maintenance and reduces infrastructure and storage costs. With end-to-end data lifecycle management with archive, purge, restore, and rollback, EmVault ensures that data is managed in a structured, policy-driven manner, maintaining integrity and compliance at every stage. Its controlled batch processing prevents transaction blocking and production impact, with options for scheduling and throttling to protect live systems. Finally, EmVault provides full transparency through real-time monitoring, alerts, and detailed logging, giving complete visibility and operational confidence. So before we close, let me quickly recap what we discussed today. We started with the problem, uncontrolled database growth, and how it leads to performance issues, maintenance complexities, cost issues, and operational challenges. Then we discussed the approach, where we introduced EmVault as a structured solution to manage database growth. After that, we went into the engineering of EmVault, where we understood how EmVault performs archive and purge operations safely without impacting live production operations. Next, we explored the operational capabilities through the EmVault application demo. And finally, we looked at the impact, where we saw the volume of data customers have archived using EmVault. For further details about EmVault or any of our products or services, please feel free to reach us at info@dhruvts.com or visit our website www.dhruvts.com. If you are interested, we would also be happy to arrange a quick demo of EmVault or provide a trial license so that you can evaluate the product in your environment. Thank you all. Over to you, Umesh.
Yeah, thanks, Meghraj. Appreciate the time for insightful session and for showcasing the capabilities of Dhruv's EmVault. Let's check for some questions. try to answer them. I'm just checking the Q&A questions here. There's one question that has popped in, Meghraj. How does EmVault affect ongoing production operations while a purge is being done using EmVault?
Okay. So as we saw, like EmVault does batch processing. So EmVault processes
Mhm.
records in batches. So these are small batches which are short-lived. They commit quickly. So they will not hold long locks or lock any transactions. So due to this, they would pose very minimal impact on the production operations. And even with that, we have few more strategies where we can control the execution speed of the archive and purge operations. So we have a setting called configuration of parallelism, wherein we can configure how many parallel threads or transactions you want to run and you want to hit the source database. So by default, MWort runs 6 transactions, but you can tune it to make the impact very minimal on the production database. And also there is a max degree of parallelism number where you can set up how many ports. Means suppose you have if you have many ports in your source database and you want only
Mhm.
few of the ports to use for archive operations and other ports you want to use for other operations. So you can set that number as well. So with this, you can control the impact on the production operation. But even then, if you feel like you have a lot of load on the production, then you can schedule the job to run on off-peak periods, or you can pause and resume the job as well to run it on off-peak periods. So you have many strategies there. So this will make sure that you don't have much impact on the live production operations, much to no impact as well. Yeah.
Okay, okay. There's another question what I see. How long does it take to install EmVault and start executing archive or purge operations?
Okay. So for installing the MWord software, it would take around 1 hour. But after installation,
Okay.
you would have to do the database configuration, table relationship setup, and table setup and everything, right? So for that, it depends on the complexity of your database schema. So if you do not have much complex database, means you do not have any complex tables or custom tables or custom columns or anything, and you're just using the OOB tables and columns, then you can start the archive and purge operation right away by using our predefined templates, which we are providing. But if you have customizations in your database schema, then you would have to study that and get to know how the tables are linked and everything, and then you have to configure them in the setup table management and relations as well. So this would take around 1 or 2 weeks to completely set it up, and then you can start with the archive and purge operations.
Okay, you meant 1 or 2 weeks if there's custom tables, right?
Exactly, yes. Yeah.
Okay. There's another question majorly on application database. If we have multiple application database, can EmVault manage them from a single instance?
Right, yes, yeah. So you can install EmVault in a centralized server from which you should be able to connect to all the application databases, either it is production, UAT, or dev, or any other databases. So from that centralized server, EmVault will connect to source database and the respective archive databases and starts processing.
Okay. There's one more question on how many transactions can EmVault process. So how many database transactions can EmVault process per day or per second?
Okay, so how many database transactions depends on the size of the database and the hardware of the database.
Okay.
Okay, but our customers who are using EmVault, we observe that they are able to process around 1.5 million to 2 million transactions per day, which would come around 15 to 25 transactions per second. But again, this can be tunable by tuning the parallelism configuration, wherein you can configure or tune it to run more parallel transactions on the source database. So that number will again impact how many transactions you're going to have for the day or per second.
There's one more I see, but I think there was a slide on this. How can MVault handle document blob data? There was a slide with some explanations given, but if you want to quickly brief on
Yeah.
that, you can do, Mehraj.
Okay. So in the Opcenter database, the blob data is stored in the doc contents table, which is
Mm-hmm.
a link to the document table, and which is of document modeling object. So if we directly try to purge the blob data through mvault, so we would be deleting the blob data, and the document could be referenced to other documents or other modeling objects or even other active containers. So this will cause inconsistencies in the database. So that's why it's very risky to directly purge the document blob. So that's why we have another application called Flow Migrator. What it does is that it migrates the blob data to any external storage, suppose AWS S3 Azure blob or any network storage or anything. So what it does is that it takes the blob data and downloads it into the external storage, and takes that file's URL and update that URL in the document of the database. So the URL is updated in the document in that row in the database. So
Okay.
due to this, the document will be still accessible, and we also and at the end actually, the blob will also get deleted. Once the document is migrated, the blob will also get deleted. So you will have the document blob purged as well as the document accessibility in place. So this will solve that problem.
Okay, yeah, that again helps. There's one interesting question, Meghraj. Can MVault restore specific container and related records of that container?
Okay, so what happens is that when you do the archive and purge, you would have selected a few bunch of containers through the rule query. So only those containers can be restored. Means entire job can be restored. You cannot restore a specific container directly. So uh, entire job can be restored is what a functionality we have.
Entire job is okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
So
I hope.
whatever the job has processed, all the data can be restored. You cannot just pinpoint one single container of
One
that job,
specific
and
container data.
yeah,
Okay,
yeah, it cannot be done like that.
okay. Currently, it cannot be managed. Okay.
Yeah.
There's another question. Not sure if I understood this question correctly. I will try to read it out. Does it mean, does MVault use the OTB Siemens purge script, or does it use the Siemens OTB purge script knowledge? Does MVault use it? I think that's
Uh,
what is meant.
okay. So mvault doesn't use any of the Siemens's purge scripts or any of the stored procedures or SQL queries of it.
Okay.
mvault has its own query generation mechanism in place, which will generate the queries on the fly while doing the archive and purge operations.
Okay. Another interesting question I see. Can the archiving process run concurrently with high volume production transactions, or is a maintenance window required?
Yeah. So as I explained earlier, so there are
Yeah,
few strategies that you can use to minimize the impact on the production, and
production.
uh, our customers are also using that one. So they were able to tune the parallelism numbers and were able to run the archive and purge operations while the live productions are still going on. So you can control the impact, and if you still feel that lot of impact is causing because you have very high load on the database, then you can schedule the job to run on the off-peak periods. So if you
Yeah,
feel
but
that a lot of load is there, then a little bit
it,
downtime would be required.
it can run concurrently, right?
Yeah, it can be run
That's one
concurrently.
aspect. Yeah, that was one of the primary questions they had asked. Okay, the next one is, how can the processing speed of archive or purge jobs be controlled?
So we have a configuration setting called parallel processing, wherein
Mm-hmm.
you can tune some numbers and make sure that you will set up it in such a way that you will have minimum impact on the production. So the parallel processing configuration contains the numbers wherein you can specify how many parallel transactions to be hit to the source database. So by default, it will have 6 transactions. You can tune it accordingly. And again, we have max degree of parallelism, wherein you can specify how many cores of the source database you want to use for the archive and purge operation. So that way you can throttle the execution speed to minimize the impact on the production as well as maintain the efficiency of the operation.
Okay. There's one more interesting question, Meghraj. How does the tool handle schema updates? Okay, there's a second part of that. If we upgrade Opcenter to a new version, how does EmVault reconcile the archive data with the new table structures? Should I again read it
Yeah,
out and break it out, or okay, how does the tool handle schema updates? That's the
yeah.
first part of the question.
So if you have updated the schema, for example, introduced any new table or
Right.
new column in the existing table or anything, so that has to be updated in the setup table management and setup relation management page. So once that is updated, and then when you run the new jobs, then that configuration would be taken into account while processing. Okay. So, but
Okay.
if you had already run the jobs before, so those won't be updated because the jobs had already run with the previous schema.
Okay. If we upgrade Opcenter to a newer version, how does EmVault reconcile the archived data with the new table structures?
Yeah, means archive data was archived on the previous version, right?
Older
So
version, that is
older
what they
version,
mean.
right?
Yes. Yes.
So it mvault cannot again make it to reconcile with the newer version because the archive job was processed
Run on
in
an
the
old
past,
version.
right? Yeah. So it cannot be done through mvault, but if you are going to run the new jobs, then you can set up that new table configuration and new jobs will take that into account and run the jobs.
That answers that question. Couple of them more have popped up, so we still have around 7, 8 minutes. So I'll just read them out. Can you describe the performance management and reliability if in case of more data? I think the question possibly is how performance management can be managed if the data is huge.
Okay. So again, it comes to the tuning of the parallel processing numbers. So one of our customers who are using EmVault, they have their data
Hmm.
in terabytes. So they have tuned that number accordingly so that they can have minimal impact on the source database, but still were able to run the archive and purge job efficiently. So
Okay.
even if we have terabytes of data or huge data in the tables, since our mVault processes batch processing and you can tune how many batches you want to run in parallel, it can scale very well with the large database as well. So performance can be managed by tuning those numbers.
Okay, there is a similar question, I believe. How does the MVault scale when the database grows to multiple terabytes?
Yeah, this in the same way, like
Yeah,
uh,
similar.
in the similar way, you can tune the performance numbers in the pa process parallel configuration. So you can control how many batches parallel you want to execute on the source database. So it basically depends on how you tune your mVault environment to suit your hardware, your database load, and the scenarios, whatever you have. It is very flexible. You can tune it in any way.
Okay. There's one question relating to reporting application. Can archive data be indexed differently for reporting purpose?
Yeah, you can put a different index on the archive database. it shouldn't be any problem. Yeah. It can be used for reporting and different indexing as
Most probably there's one more question, but this might be similar to what you answered previously. How are schema changes in the source database handled?
well. Yeah, means if you have any schema changes like new tables or new columns, then you can configure them in the setup table management and setup relation management screen. And when the new job runs, then that configuration will be picked and processed.
Okay. There is one more that has popped up. Is there any maintenance required after deploying EmVault? And if it is, what type of maintenance? What kind of maintenance?
Okay, so there would be minimum maintenance required. The
Mm-hmm.
maintenance would be like monitoring the job while the job is running. Like you can monitor the job, you can monitor job status, job logs on the debug logs. So periodic monitoring will be required. And you can also monitor the archive database growth. Since if continuous archiving is happening, then you should have a check on how much archive database is growing. So those kind of minimum maintenance is required. That's all,
Okay.
nothing.
Okay. Then there is one more. What happens if the database is configured with replication?
Okay, so replication in the sense like you will have one primary database and other replication database, and
Right.
data could be moving from primary to replication database, right? So MVault can
Correct.
connect to the primary database and operate in a similar way as it would connect to any other database without replication. So the process would be again similar. There is no special configuration required in the MVault to work it for the replication. So it can just connect to primary database and perform operations. And then replication system will anyway propagate those changes to the replicas and sync them.
Okay. I think this also looks to be answered. Can we preview or validate records before executing archive or purge operations? I think this was explained in your slide, but you can just confirm once.
Yeah, like on the rule page, we are writing the SQL query. So we have full
Mm-hmm.
flexibility given to the user to write whatever SQL query you want based on the retention policies. So there is an option to execute query. So it can execute and it can bring up 1,000 records, but it won't be bringing everything there. So what you can do is that you can first execute that query in the SSMS or SQL developer and uh, check the records and validate them. Then write the same query in the rule query and execute it. It will give you first 1,000 records. You can verify that as well. So like that, you can preview and validate. But if you want to validate all the records, like all means we have root table, then we have child tables and everything. So there will be hierarchy of tables, and if you want to validate everything, then you have to first run it in some environment. Like what we recommend is run the archive and purge job in the dev or QA environment, have the similar kind of database that you have in the production, and use that to run it in the dev or QA. Then there you can validate everything, like all the hierarchy of records, hierarchical table records. Then if everything is fine and you have validated, then you can move to the production and perform the same kind of operations there.
There's one more question on maintenance. Does EmVault also handle the maintenance of archive database?
Maintenance of archive.
Archive database,
So,
the database, what is
yeah,
archive, right?
the database maintenance would be means MVault can connect to the archive database and perform operations. If any other maintenance is required, then that would be handled by again DBA team, I guess. So MVault from the MVault side, it can just process the data and put them into the archive database.
It cannot do any maintenance of that database as such, right?
Yeah, it has to be
EmVault will
done
not do.
externally
Yeah,
by the
yeah.
DBA team.
Okay. Then there was one what I just saw, I think. Okay, one last question possibly. How does EmVault handle situations where a job stops due to power failure, system shutdown, or database unavailability? This is one good question
Okay,
actually.
okay, yeah. It's a good question. What happens is if a job has failed due to any reason, then the status of the job would be recorded. So since mVault processes records in batch-driven processing in a transaction, so whenever a batch is processing in a transaction, if a job has failed, so the transaction will roll back, and that batch itself will get affected. And if any batches that had processed before that will not get impacted. So this way we are maintaining data consistency. So either everything is done or nothing is done. So we are not doing it in half-baked manner.
Okay.
So, and one more thing is we are maintaining the checkpointing. So whenever the transactions are executing, we are maintaining the checkpoints. So if a job has failed and when you restart it afterwards, then it will start from the last checkpoint. So basically it will start from the point where it had stopped previously. So
Okay.
that is handled.
Yeah. We are running out of time, Meghraj. So I would like to stop here. But if anyone has any additional further questions, feedback, or would like to discuss how your organization can implement this solution, please feel free to reach out to our team at info@dhruvts.com or through the contact us page on Dhruv website. Thank you all again once again for joining us today, and we hope you found the session valuable as well as a good module for your organization. Have a great rest of your day. Take care. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you, everyone.